Welcome to Volume 1 in the Magic with Rubber Bands video series. I'm Dan Harlan, and I'm here in the beautiful original Chateau Falanga. The area of rubber band magic is growing rapidly, and I feel the time is right for a comprehensive instructional video, combining the old and the new. As you may know, I've invented a few rubber band effects, which are pretty popular. As a result, some people have called me the master of rubber band magic. Now, although I'm thrilled by such a compliment, I've found that I'm not the only one who loves creating illusions with ordinary rubber bands. There are many equally skilled performers who have created some wonderful effects with these innocent little elastic rings. Like magic with cards and coins, rubber band magic is developing a strong following and an ever-widening variety of plots and routines. Now, I've spent the last few years tracing the development, tracking down the creators, and collecting the very finest material to present to you, so that you might also come to appreciate the charm of rubber band magic. I've carefully selected the kind of effects to present and eliminated any that required a special gimmick or too much advanced preparation. You'll learn full routines, standalone tricks, and utility moves that can be applied in numerous ways. I'm sure you'll find many ideas here to add to your repertoire, and all you'll need, besides some practice, are a few rubber bands. Now, there's one rubber band trick that is probably more famous than any other, due to its prominent use on one of David Copperfield's television specials. Of course, I'm talking about Arthur Sederington's penetrating bands, which has also been popularized by Michael Amar as the crazy man's handcuffs. Now, this effect is probably performed by professionals more often than any other rubber band effect. Since Copperfield rejuvenated interest in this effect, many other magicians have added their own touches to create a visual illusion that is truly superior. And still others have taken the basic concept entirely to new levels by thinking in alternate directions. The following sequence combines many of the best variations into one cohesive routine. Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. My name's Dan, and you are?
My name's Tanya.
Tanya, nice to meet you. And you are?
Sonia.
I'm still Dan. Yeah, it's nice to meet you too. Sonia and Tanya. I am going to show you some magic with a deck of cards. Have you ever seen card tricks before?
Yeah.
Oh, you have? Well, okay. I'll do a rubber band trick. A rubber band trick for you. But I don't know many rubber band tricks with one rubber band. So instead, I'll use two.
Wow.
Two rubber bands and my two hands and your waiting, watching eyes. Now, you'll notice that I'll put one rubber band behind the other one, just like this. And once I do that, I'm locked into these like a little pair of handcuffs. There's absolutely no way that I can escape. Well, okay, there's a couple of ways. I could take my fingers or my thumbs out. But as long as I don't do that, my fingers and my thumbs stay in the way, and there's no way to separate the bands, so I'm pretty much trapped, unless I use a little bit of magic right here in the center. And I get one band to melt right through the other one, just like that. Well, it's not bad until you realize that bands have that ability to melt back and forth through one another very, very easily. I'll show you how easy it is. I'll make one strand melt through, and then the second. See, that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple. When you know how to do it, you can even do it in three parts. You can make one strand melt through one band. See how it's trapped only on one? And then the other band melt through the other strand. And then finally, both of them meld apart in the center.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Well, thanks very much. Of course, you may not trust that these are just ordinary rubber bands. So, Tanya, I'd like you to hold on to this one and place your fingers into it like that and just stretch it out in front of yourself. That's terrific. Turn a little bit like that. And I'll place the other rubber band right behind it. Okay? See, now we're locked together. You're holding on to one very firmly. I'm holding on to the other one. There's no way that the two bands can come apart until I find a soft spot. And they come apart very easily.
That's great.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Of course, I'll show you the strangest way to do this of all. The strangest way is to do it very slowly, right in front of you, so that you can't see how they melt apart. Very slowly. Okay? So watch the two rubber bands. Fingers and thumbs are still in the way. And yet right here in the center. Oh, no, wait a second. You've seen that already, so let me change it a little bit. Yeah, I started with one rubber band, so of course I've gone back to one rubber band. Problem is, I did want to show you the best way to do this, and now I have one rubber band, and I can't break it apart and put it back together so many times, so I'm going to have to use something as a substitute for the rubber band. So we'll use a playing card, and I'll kind of make an impromptu rubber band. So basically, it's just a ring, so all I have to do is tear a circle in the center of the card, and that will make a ring that we can use as a... Oh yeah, I guess I folded it one too many times. Well, that's my fault. See, I didn't make a ring, I just sort of made a... that's strange. Well, let me see if I can get it to work with this. We'll give this a try. Should work just about as well. Yeah, of course. I can trap myself just as easily right there in the center of the card. And if you watch those two center strands, with just a little blow, it goes right through.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, of course, you know, that might be one of those special gimmicked cards. You know, those magicians are always using that tricky stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd like to use something more solid. Actually, some metal. Are you wearing a finger ring that I can borrow?
Yes, I am.
Oh, terrific, terrific. Yeah, solid gold finger ring. Now, there's no opening in there except for the one for your finger, so it'll be impossible, once it's trapped, for anything to penetrate through that ring. But you know, it's not a magic ring. So what I'm going to have to do is to give it some magical properties. So I'm going to try to magnetize that ring in a very magical way. So watch the ring closely. Just a little shake, and the magic starts to work.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Thanks. Yeah, I think your ring's going to work fine for this. And it seems to be a natural-born entertainer. So let's give this one a try. And we'll get it locked up onto my finger and my thumb, just like before with the rubber band. But this time it's a solid ring, so that there's no way that that band can go through. And yet it does, and then again.
Wow. Good job, really.
Welcome to the explanation for the rubber cuffs routine. This is a multi-phase routine using many variations of the rubber cuffs idea. I'm going to go through each one of those phases and describe it just as I had performed it. All you'll need to perform this are 2 rubber bands and a deck of cards. The rubber bands are the correct size to fit from your index finger to your thumb. These are number 19s in an office supply. If you get a number 19, that's the correct size. To set everything up, you put the 2 rubber bands together and wrap them around the deck as though they were one rubber band. Now, it's not critical to try to hide this condition because people just accept that it's a single rubber band, even though both of them are doubled over one another. And it's not important for the beginning, but it does make the appearance of the second band a little more magical if you do it this way. So you bring out the deck of cards and you talk about performing some card tricks. You realize the audience has already seen card magic before. As you talk about it, you remove the rubber band from around the deck and keep it on the fingers of your left hand like this. So it still looks like a single rubber band. You realize you're not going to be doing card tricks. Instead, you'll be doing some rubber band magic. So you pick up the band, stretch it between both hands like this. Now you'll notice that when you relax, it's going to separate. It's just a natural thing. And then you just let one rubber band snap over and then release the other one and it snaps to the other side. That's how you produce the second rubber band. It looks as though you're splitting one. So you want to make sure that you show a single rubber band and say, well, I don't know much with one rubber band, but I can show you something with 2. And then you have both of them. And you immediately go into the setup for Arthur Sederington's penetrating bands, also known as Michael Amar's Crazy Man's handcuffs, and I like to call it rubber cuffs. So to do this, you have one rubber band around the index finger and thumb of your left hand. The other one hangs off of the index finger of your right hand. You place that behind the left hand's band, and your right thumb goes into the loop at the bottom. It picks it up. So now they're trapped together, okay, one behind the other one, just like that. Now before you perform any of the secret moves, you show that the bands are trapped by hitting your index fingers and thumbs each in sequence. And then when you get ready to perform the secret move, your right middle finger touches the band at the top of your index finger. And I do the same thing with my left hand, even though you don't have to. I do it for consistency. So both fingers come down like this. As you pull toward yourself, you'll notice that my right index finger will dip down out of the band, although my middle finger is still pinching the band against the nail of my index finger. My index finger dips all the way down, touches my thumb, and inserts into the loop of the band back here. As it comes up, my index finger is now pulling the band from my thumb. I move forward. I release the pressure of my middle finger, which causes the bands to snap apart. But I continue the downward action and push here. So in a sequence, it's going to look like I've shown this, and this, here, Fingers come down, I pull, release, and come back to the index finger. And the bands are separate, even though it appears as though they're still behind one another. So I continue this action once again, come to the center, and at this point, if you use translucent bands, which I'm using here, you can't tell even close up whether the bands are behind one another or in front. And they've already been separated, but you can rub them together like this, take as much time as you want, and they appear to melt right through one another. That's the standard approach for the rubber cuffs. Some important things to remember are to keep your hands consistent, open as far as you can for most of the performance, then bring your fingers down. This action is done kind of as a rotating action. So this hand is going to rotate and then come back forward. And you'll see how that makes the trapped condition of the band seem the same when you come back. So it's just in that rotating action that you've done the release. So that's an important thing to remember with it. Okay? Once you've done that, then you go into the second phase of the routine, which is back together. Back together was invented by Mark Fitzgerald, and that is, in my opinion, it's the best way to get the bands to go back through one another. So you've released them, and then everyone relaxes, they're surprised by that moment, and with your right hand you switch the band to your middle finger. Okay? So just in a gesture, you just switch it to your middle finger. So it's not really noticed, it's a peripheral action. Okay? And then you bring your right hand back to the left hand's band, and you'll see my index finger is going to do all of the important work. It's going to wrap around the left hand band, it's going to come back and enter the right hand band from behind. Okay? So I'll try to let you see that as well as possible. Comes around the left hand's band, goes behind the right hand's band, around the back of the thumb, enters and picks it up. You'll see the condition of the band here. If I drop my right middle finger, then the band's on the other side. Okay, so that's the action that you need. You come together, the index finger goes around, picks up, and the middle finger drops, and then the bands are linked again. So done in full speed, they touch, and they're together. And that's it. Okay? And again, the important thing to remember there is not to pay too much attention to your right hand. Act as though it's still on your index finger, no one will notice. And then just worry about the index finger's action and relax your middle finger, and the band will snap right off of it from the pressure of your index finger picking it up. Okay? After that phase, I moved into a couple of things by Dave Neighbors. Dave Neighbors had some interesting ideas with the rubber bands and the release move. Instead of doing it in the traditional way and coming right back, he twists his right hand all the way around. So the thumb comes up to the top and the fingers down at the bottom. But during that twisting action, he performs the release and then ends up in this position. Now it's kind of a strange position, so let me show you what happens as we do it. You pull the bands against one another, perform the release move, turn your hands over, and you'll notice that there are 3 strands that are going to be trapped between your index and middle fingers of your right hand. Now as you turn over, you roll those 3 strands together and pinch them very tightly so that they coalesce into almost one strand. Now it's not going to pass for it's not going to pass a long examination, but casual examination. Very quickly it passes for a single strand. So you do that, you turn over, and it looks like one strand of the band has penetrated these 2, and the other one is still running behind. You do that very quickly, then just release the pressure between your middle and index finger of your right hand, and the other strand penetrates. So I'll show it to you again, full speed, full sequence. You pull one strand through, then the second. Okay? 1, 2. And to take this a step further, you can release one strand of the left-hand band. That first one is the crazy twist. Yes, that's the crazy twist. Is that right? No, that is the twice as crazy. Yeah, twice as crazy. Yeah. Okay, so Dave Neighbors tried twice as crazy. The other one is the crazy link. I'll show you that. So you go through the left-hand band with your right index finger, right where you can see the square in the center. The index finger goes right into there. Now you'll notice I'm performing the release move, but without stretching the bands. So I perform the release move, put my index finger right into the center square, and then turn my right hand slightly to the left so that my index finger picks up the band inside the left hand's band. So it's a very gentle, small action like that. And that just causes it to appear to penetrate one strand of the left hand's band. Now you perform twice as crazy, but what happens is it appears as though the bands are linked together for a second. So it looks like a strand is penetrated here, a strand is penetrated there, and all that's left is a single strand on each band in the center. If you release the pressure, they pop apart. Okay? So that's twice as crazy, and then the crazy link. Now, after you perform that, you're going to go into a section that I call soft spot, which involves the spectator. And this is kind of a traditional section where you have a spectator take one of the bands and hold it with her index fingers bent like that. Okay? And you should help the spectator get into the correct position. You have your own band if you need to demonstrate how they're supposed to hold theirs. So they hook their index fingers in, and then they stretch the band out, and they hold it so that you can get right around the center. You perform the same thing that you did with your left hand, where you place this band behind the spectators and then pick up the loop at the bottom. You pull it toward yourself to show that it's trapped, and then you use the spectator's fingers just like you did with your left hand finger and thumb. You push and push here. Then you're going to pull in the center and perform the release move. Now from the spectator's point of view, that's completely covered. They couldn't see what you're doing here anyway. But you do it in a smooth action and come right back onto the band, and it still appears to be behind it. Now you don't want to push too far, or that's obvious, and of course you don't want to pull away too soon. So you want to keep it just touching and rubbing on those strands. And if they see that, it still appears to be behind it. You pull over to one side and you say, there's the soft spot, and then you pull your hand slowly away, and it appears to go through at that moment. So full speed in the sequence. It's placed behind. You touch their fingers. You see it's caught in the center, but there's a soft spot here, and then it comes through. Okay? Now while the spectator is holding that band, you have to get rid of this one for the next sequence. Now this is on my right hand, and I've just pulled it off, and I'm still holding it here. I reach with my left hand for this band, and I just drop this one on the floor. So even standing, no one's going to notice that you've just dropped it on the floor because they see you taking the band from the spectator. But if you're seated, you can drop it behind the table's edge. So that's how I did it. Grab this here, and I drop the other band behind the table's edge. So this hand comes up, I turn it in as though it still holds a band. So now I only have one. Thank you. So one band on the left hand, and I'm going to act like I'm placing the right hand's band behind it, just like I had done before. They've seen it enough times that they're going to just anticipate what's going to happen. But instead, I take my index finger and thumb of my right hand, and I grab the top strand of the left hand's band. So I hook over the top, then I turn toward myself, my hand goes palm up for a second, I've made a figure 8, and then it turns palm down again as I even the tension on both of those openings in the figure 8. So I'll show you again. I grab over, twist toward myself, turn and even the tension. So there's a figure 8 formed very quickly here. Now my right thumb goes behind the band, underneath the left hand strand, all the way around behind both of these strands, into the right hand's opening, right next to my index finger. Pulls that strand down like this. And all I have to do now is take my middle finger out, and it looks like I have two bands. One of them behind the other one. But it's just a twisted figure 8 condition. Now what's interesting about this is that it looks like the bands are behind one another, and you can still move to the fingers and thumbs and perform exactly the same actions, as long as you move on a diagonal. Now remember, your cross point is right here, so you use that as the point where everything slides. So you slide down to this finger, up to that thumb, down to this finger, up to the other thumb. Then pull, looks like two bands. You can show very cleanly that they're one behind the other one. You take your right hand touch the index finger and thumb together as you allow the band to just come into a pinched condition. Move it slowly toward the left and rub it, and it appears to melt back in. That leaves you with a single band. Now that's the crazy twist vanish. There have been other variations of that, most of which end up with the twisted second band in front of the left hand's band. So you can't show all of the movement and you can't perform all the things. Some of the other setups take too long to accomplish, but this is my own handling, and it's done with just a twist and a pickup, so it looks like just a single band is being placed behind it. Simulates the actions almost perfectly. Okay, down to a single band. At this point, you say in the routine, well, you know, I started with one band, I'm back to one band, but I need another band to perform the rest of the effect, what I wanted to show you. So you pick up one of the cards, and you're going to tear an opening in it. The spectators think, well, you're just going to tear it into, you know, a single opening. You fold the card exactly in half, and then in half again, and then you tear a very small opening in one side that's going to be just about big enough for your finger or your thumb. Okay? When you open the card, then you'll have two small openings torn into it, which is kind of strange. You sort of act like that's not what you expected. You wanted to get just the whole center gone, but you'll see if this will work. Take your right index finger and thumb and push them through the openings with the back of the card facing out, facing away from your palm. So the back of the card is there. Then you put the rubber band over your index finger and thumb, and then you carefully, and this is the hardest part of the trick, maneuver the band, your thumb, your index finger, and everything to the other side. Okay? So that you'll have two strands running across here, and you want everyone to see that picture. And then you grab with your left hand, your thumb and index finger right next to the rubber band, and you pull like this. And as you pull back, you're going to show that it can't go through, and I actually use my left thumb as support so that it doesn't bend the card like this. So my left thumb supports the band. I perform the release move, and I come back forward. There's still two strands at the front, and I'll try to move this over so you can see there's a third strand back here, which I try to get that to line up right behind one of the strands in the front. Okay? And you're pinching up here with your middle finger against your index finger. Now you can move that down behind the border of the card to help hide that situation. But most people don't look there anyway. They're looking right in the center at the two strands. So you say, watch the two strands. Now I'm going to move my finger so that you can see what happens. I'm just going to release the pressure of my middle finger. And as I release it, the band snaps down, comes all the way through. So it appears to penetrate right through as they're paying, you know, full attention to those two strands. They come right through the card. At that point, you say, well, maybe the card would be gimmicked or one of those magic props that you've seen, so I'm going to borrow a ring. So I borrow a spectator's finger ring. You want to get a nice one. Of course, you want to get one that doesn't have any other openings. You know, some rings are formed, or they have a crack in them in some kind. And you want to get one that's a pretty smooth band, so nothing too ornate, because you don't want the rubber band to get hung up on it. So you have the ring, you borrow it from a spectator, you place it onto your left index finger. Then you can place the band onto your fingers and show it. You display it, transfer it to the right-hand side and show it there. Okay, so you've shown the ring very cleanly on both sides. Now you're going to pick it up in your left hand so that the front of the ring, the top of the ring, is showing out toward the front. You're holding the back of the ring here between your left index and thumb, and you pull it out. Perform the release exactly the same as before, but this time when you push back toward the ring, you allow it to release all the way, and you push the band between your left index and middle fingers. And then you can pull and allow one strand to snap out, like that. So it appears as though one strand has been released. And then immediately pull again and release the rest of the band, which is just pinched, and the second strand pulls out. So I'll try to do that again for you. Full speed, transfer over, grab the ring, show that it's trapped. 1, 2. Okay? And then you hand the ring back, and you're done. Again, the most important thing to remember when you're performing the rubber cuffs routine is to make the secret move part of a natural sequence of actions so that it doesn't stand out or call attention to itself. And then after the bands have been released, pause before the penetration. That will give you a much better visual illusion. And now are you interested in some strange rubber band magic? Something off the beaten path perhaps? Tired of the traditional penetration routines? Well, there's a lot of great material that has nothing to do with rubber bands penetrating one another. And to prove it, I've put together a sequence that covers everything from the story of creation to the science of cloning without ever mentioning penetration. And that's no small feat. At the end, you get to put your magic where your mouth is as you tie it all together. Now, if you ever thought that performing with rubber bands was a bit limiting, the following should change your mind. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that little rubber band trick there, but and I sure wish I could show you some more, but we're down to one rubber band again, and yeah, I know, it's a bummer. I only know a couple of things with one rubber band, so here, let me show you what I know. Okay, here's the church, and here's the steeple. And you open the doors and look at the church's fine collection of postmodern string art. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I don't know much with one rubber band, but remember before how I had one and I made two? Yeah. Well, I can do the same thing, but I have to tell you a story because it's a little bit different. And it's a story that came out of a pretty good book. You may be familiar with it. There was this guy, Adam. He was chilling in a garden, had a whole bunch of animals around, but he had nobody to play frisbee with because the only animals that had hands were the monkeys. And the monkeys, they used to take the frisbee and play keep away from Adam. So he was kind of upset by that. So there was this big dude, and the big dude said, "Hey Adam, I'll help you out of your predicament. I'll take one of your ribs," pretty painful thing to do, but pulled a rib right off of him and said, "Adam, dude, man, all I have to do is make that rib into another one like you." Oh, wow. He was a happy dude. Yeah, I know. I know. Now, even though that's pretty cool, there's still only two rubber bands, and you've seen everything I do with two rubber bands. So I'm going to have to go one step further in the story and talk about what happened after they left the garden. This could get a little risque, so let me try to tone it down a bit. You see, this is the mating ritual of the rubber bands. So one rubber band goes into one hand, the other rubber band goes into a dark place right here in my pocket. And then one rubber band says, "Hey, come on over here and join me in this hand." She says, "Sure." And it does. Wow. And both rubber bands come back to the same place. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Now they do this repeatedly. One rubber band going into the hand, one rubber band going into the pocket. This rubber band says, "Hey, come and join me here," and it does. I mean, they do it over and over again until they get really, really tired. And once they get really, really tired, they decide that both of them should stay in the same hand instead of all that running around into the pocket and stuff. So they stay in the same hand for a long, long time. And you know what happens in the dark between rubber bands?
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Look at that little baby band. Look at the little baby band. Do you want to see the little baby band? You are so strange. But those are kind of small. So there's no way that I could perform a lot of the magic that I do with rubber bands that are that small. So I'm going to have to use a little magic in addition. And let's see what I can do here. We're going to try, we'll try to take a couple of these and make them into a big rubber band. So we'll take a little of the small ones. And if I get them pretty warmed up, then this might just work. Yeah, we'll stretch those two little rubber bands, get them warmed up. And as soon as they're warm enough, then just a little rub, and they go into one rubber band. Oh yeah, so great, yeah. So now I could keep doing that over and over again. I could keep taking small rubber bands, and I could keep joining them together, but the problem is if I do them two at a time, it takes a long time to do that. So here we'll do more than two. We'll do about 4 rubber bands, and we'll join those all together. But yeah, that didn't work the way I expected. I was kind of hoping to get a a band that size. All right, well, I've got an idea. All I have to do is take the big rubber band, take the one I want, and the size that I don't want. That would be a little one, a medium one, and a big rubber band. So 3 different sizes, okay, of rubber bands. There you go, the 3 different sizes. And with just a little tension, I can stretch them out so that they look almost the same size, as long as I keep them stretched out. Oh, sometimes when I relax them, they do look the same size. Yeah.
Wow.
See?
That's great.
So then we end up with 3 rubber bands, all the same size. But the problem with that is that that's really not the way it is. I've just hypnotized you into believing that those 3 rubber bands are the same. To break the hypnotic spell, I put them on my finger and give them a little spin.
Wow.
And they go right back to the way they were. A little one, a medium one, and the long one.
That's terrific. Wow, that's great. Yes.
Oh, thanks. Actually, there's an easier way to do this than picking up the rubber bands and joining them together. And it's a scientific method. It doesn't involve the stuff in the pocket or the thing in the hand. Instead, this method is cloning, where you can take one rubber band, and as long as you understand the structure of a single rubber band, then you can get it to clone instantly into another one. Here, I'll show you what I mean. Just a little snap. Here, for safety's sake, I'll put my finger and thumb together. And it'll split right into 2. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Well, see, now I'm getting closer to having enough rubber bands. Now, we don't need all the little ones, because those won't work for our stuff. But okay, so we don't need those, but we use these, because these will work out fine. But I need, let's see, Tanya, would you help me and just pick one of those rubber bands? Which one would you like me to use? Which one? That one? Okay, that's perfect. Okay, it's that cloning thing, but gone into high gear. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, so that's enough to use, right? You know, I've shown you some kind of strange stuff with the rubber bands, but now I'm going to show you something that is dangerous and disgusting.
Okay.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're up for this. Okay. All right. But I got to caution you. Okay. Rubber bands seem like they're really fun, but this is so dangerous. Don't ever try to do this. And if you see someone trying to do this, stop them immediately. Well, aren't you going to stop me? You guys, thrill seekers, both of you. All right, here we go. Dangerous and disgusting.
Oh. Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow.
A little sleight of tongue. Yeah. Oh, not bad. Yeah. Takes years of practice to learn how to do that, but actually it's not so bad. Here, I'm going to give you half of these, and I'm going to give you half of those, and why don't you try it? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Here, I'm going to take some of yours and place them into my mouth. Okay? And some of yours. Some of yours.
Oh my God.
I haven't eaten in weeks. And some of yours. And then the last one. Here we go.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Yay. All right.
Okay, well, I hope you're ready for some work for that routine. There's a lot involved with this one, and there's a lot of things that you have to get ready, and you'll probably use more bands in this routine than you've ever used in your life for anything. So I've got here all of the bands that I'm going to be using, and most of the things are already set up, but I'll go through how you have to do that. And we're using two different sizes of rubber bands, the standard number 19 rubber bands. Need a box of those because you've got some that are tied together, bundled up, you've got a few that are out, and also a special one that you have to make if you can't find. I'll tell you about that in a moment. In addition to the number 19s, you need some smaller bands. Normally I use number 10, which are half the size of number 19s. But going to the office supply, I was only able to locate number 8s, but that's okay because those look even cuter than the number 10s. Those are little bands, and you get a full box of those because you're going to have a whole bunch of those bundled up as well. Now here's what you need to do. You take one of the number 19 bands and you roll it up into a little ball. So you start at one end and you kind of roll it around itself into a little ball. And once you've got it rolled up as tight as possible, you take the remaining end, you give it a couple of twists, and you lock it over itself. You just double loop it over itself. You'll end up with this. Okay, it's just a little knotted rubber band that all stays together, but that's a number 19. So that's one of the things that you have to make. After that, you take some of your number 8s and you place them all together over your finger so that they're all lined up. And you just take a bunch, as many as you can possibly do. Put a bunch of them all over your finger like this. One extra number 8, you pull them off, you smash them flat so that their ends stick out, both sides. You take the remaining one and you double it over about 2 or 3 times. And when you've done that, you end up with this. It's a package of number 8s with one wrapped around it. Okay? You do the same thing with the 19s, but with the 19s, you're going to put those over your finger. You take them all off and you give them a twist in the center. A whole bundle, twist them in the center, double them over one another like that, so they're about the size of the 8s, smash them flat, wrap another number 19 around them, and you've got a bundle. Okay? So you've got the small band, the small bundle, the large bundle. After that, you're going to have to make a big band, or try to find one. Now this rubber band has to be twice the size of a number 19, so that when it's doubled over, it's the same size as the 19. Okay? And you're going to have to either find this band or make it. The way that you make it is by using some crazy glue. And if you were able to see very closely, right there, the band is glued together on that side, and directly opposite, right here, is the other joint. So you take two number 19s, you cut them in half with a scissors, you place them side by side into this big circle, you take the crazy glue, make a little dab with it, dip one end into the glue, another end into the glue, and hold those two ends together. Do the same thing on the other end, and you'll have a band that will last you quite a few performances. And no one inspects this band anyway, so it doesn't matter if the bead is a little bit larger than you'd want it to be, because it won't even be seen for very long. Okay, so that's your large band, and you need that as well. In addition to that, you're going to need a thumb tip, and you'll need to bridle hitch a number of rubber bands together. Now, let me quickly show you how to do that. If you're not familiar with the bridle hitch, it's a very easy thing to do. And I'll make a chain of 3 so that you can see. You take one band and loop it over another band like this. Okay? Then you're just going to transfer the ends so that the end in my right hand goes to my left hand and the end in my left hand goes to my right hand, but I push one through the other one. So they're crossed over like this, you see? Then you just drop the left hand's end, that would be the one running on the outside. You pull the bottom band down and they're knotted together. That's simple. Okay? Then after you do that, you take the next band, you loop it through so that both bands are hanging off, just like this. Okay? Same thing, transfer the ends, drop the one on the outside, and pull all the bands down. You just continue doing that over and over and over again, and you will have a long chain. Make the chain as long as you think you'd want to make it about a couple of feet, reasonable, something like that. About 10 bands would be fine. Now after you've done that, you're going to have to try to load those all into the thumb tip so that you can find both ends. It's a very difficult thing to do because if you just load them in, the ends are going to get all mixed up. So what I've decided to do is to take one of the rubber bands and near the thumbnail of the thumb tip, I loop it back over itself 3 times. Okay, so that holds that end in place. Then I run the bands up along the side of the thumb tip and I put them all in. And you're going to find that this is one of the most difficult parts of the routine, is getting all the bands to stay in the thumb tip. Once you get them all loaded in there, you lock them in place with the remaining band. But this isn't your typical silk trick where it's going to be easy to get it to stay in there. Okay. So once you get them all loaded in, you have this strand running up here. You've got the other end around the tip, like that. You've got a single band remaining, and you use that to wrap around the end of the thumb tip to lock everything in place and keep the other bands from coming out. There you go. It's like I said, it's going to take a little bit of work to do it, but this one is well worth it. So now you have this very strange looking package. Okay? Very strange looking package with the last end of the bands are here running into there. Most of the bands are inside, and the first end is here, so that when you wedge your thumb into it, it's going to look like you've got rubber bands all over your thumb. But the real secret to the thumb tip, of course, is never to let it be seen. During the routine, though, you're picking up bands, so it doesn't really matter. You can see, you know, there's all kinds of bands in front of my hands at the time when I'm doing this performance, so you'll see what happens there. Now, to load all of the things, you need to have different places to put everything. Otherwise, it all gets too confusing. You have an extra number 19 band, and that extra number 19 band is wedged underneath your belt or just looped through a belt loop. Okay? Any place off to the side that you can just get to it easily. So you loop it through your belt loop or wedge it up underneath your belt somewhere on the left-hand side so you can just pick it up very easily. Okay? After that, you take the bundle of little baby rubber bands, the number 8s, and you place those into your left-hand pocket, okay, all the way down at the bottom. That bundle will stay together. Now, the larger bundle, you put that any place that's convenient for you to steal. It doesn't really matter where it is. So you can put it on the right-hand side. You can put it somewhere secret. You can put it in a jacket pocket. This one isn't as critical because you have plenty of misdirection for this one. All the little baby bands are coming out. Then you do some other things. It seems like you're pretty much done by the time you get to this anyway. But those I'm going to put in my right-hand pocket. And and the thumb tip, of course. The thumb tip can be anywhere at all that you want it to be. I'm going to put that in my right-hand pocket with this bundle. Now, these won't get confused with one another because it's easy to tell the difference when you're reaching into your pocket for the thumb tip. And the thumb tip's the last thing, so I'm going to put that on the bottom. So the bundle's on top. Oh, and you have this large rubber band. Now, this is the hard one that's difficult to keep track of. What you need to do is to make it into a small bundle like this and hide it. Now, I hide it pretty much out in the open. I put it right under the corner of the mat in the back so that it sticks out just a little bit. And this is basically an idea from coin working. Somebody that works with production loads for coins, like a jumbo coin or something like that. Same kind of thing, but you're going to use it to ring that in as a gimmick instead of a production. So it's sticking out of the back of the mat right there. Of course, if you have a jacket pocket or some other place to put that, you can easily load that in from some other place. Now, all that you have left is this little wrapped up rubber band, which gets wedged into the fleshy part of your thumb. And you hold your thumb against your hand like that. And it's hidden from all sides. Can't be seen very well from any direction. And of course, they're not really looking for that. And you have a single rubber band that's out in the open. And then you're ready to perform. So you've got all of these bands loaded all over the place, which is why you can get so much of a production. Starting with a single rubber band, you'll have the entire table covered with them. So you show this one, and you're going to do a joke to begin with so that they don't really think that you're going very far with this rubber band at all. It's a joke from Jeff McBride. It uses an old move for making a houndstooth pattern with a rubber band. Okay, this was originally published in Elastrix, and it's easy to do the move. All you do is you wrap all of your fingers, and it's easy to do the move with that other band hidden. You wrap all 4 of your fingers in one of the bands, you put the other 4 from your other hand in next to them, and then you just cross your fingers over and grab the bands on opposite sides. Okay? Just grab them, pivot your hands out, all the fingers go in, knuckles out, and you pull. And that's it. Okay, so it automatically makes that pattern. So McBride's joke is to make the church with the steeple, and when you open it up, you see the collection of postmodern string art. Okay, and after that you go, yeah, that was a pretty lame joke, but you know, kind of on the religious theme, I'll tell you a story. And then you tell the story, the biblical story of Adam and Eve, however you want to tell it. You know, I don't like to get too heavy into theology, so I just tell it with kind of a loose attitude. But you still have this little rubber band here. And you take this one in your right hand, and as you come up to it, you're going to grab that band that's wedged into your thumb. You're going to grab it, take it out, and act like you pull it from this band. So just in a very quick action, you just give it a little tug, like this, and then you have the little rib that you've taken off, and you roll that around until it releases itself. Just a little rubbing on that one will release it, and then it comes out to a produced band. And that is an idea from Gary Butler. Rolling up the band, placing it into the thumb like that, and he used it as a bare hand production, so you just show your hands. You could easily use it after a coin routine, card routine, any other routine, and you could say, all right, for a change of pace, we'll do something with a rubber band, and then just produce it. I like to do it pulling it off of another rubber band. It kind of gives a justification for it. So now you have the two of them, and you go into a routine that is like the Peter Rabbit routine, where you keep putting one in the hand, one in the pocket, and they keep jumping back together, and then eventually you put both of them in your hand and all that. But basically what you're going to need for that is that extra band that you've got underneath your belt loop right here. So you've just done the production, you've shown the two bands, you set them down like that, and you can kind of do a relax move as you reach in with your right hand to pick up one of those bands. And as you do that, your left hand just thumb clips the band on this side. So your right hand's reaching forward, you just clip with your thumb and bring the band out. It's that simple. So the right hand reaches forward to one band, the left hand reaches forward to the other band. So you're just showing the two bands, okay? And again, you just toss one down and act like you throw a single band into your hand. That's two of them. You take the single band and you act like you place it into your pocket. And as you do that, you thumb palm it again. So you thumb palm this, you keep your hand in your pocket until both bands come back, and then you immediately bring out the thumb palm band and stretch one of them. So you're just going to do the same sequence over and over again. The two bands go into the hand, this one goes into the pocket, those two come out, you pick up one and you stretch it, the two bands go into the hand, this one goes into the pocket, you show those two. Now a third or fourth time, all you need to do with this band is bring out the bundle of little baby rubber bands. Now don't leave this one behind because you're going to need this for all the other performances that you're doing. So bring that band out with the bundle of rubber bands. And you do the same action as you produce these two, you come out and you stretch this. But now you have all of that hidden in your hand. So you stretch it, you place the single band in your hand, dropping everything. So now all that bundle's in there. You pick up the other one, and instead of placing it in your pocket, you place it in your hand. You say the two of them are together and in the dark, and what you try to do is to get that bundle to break apart. It's almost impossible, but if you can get it to break apart, you can do the whole thing with one hand. If you can't, it's okay, because you bring your other hand in, take the tight rubber band that's wrapped around the two of them, and pull it toward yourself, and just toss it back in. So you've just released it, just like that. That's it. Then you rub, and then you show that the two bands have had all of the little baby bands. Now all of this mess up here, that's three rubber bands, might have some small ones in it, but you want them to focus their attention on all the little ones. So you show all the little bands like that. Now the reason that you need that third rubber band is because it's going to look like you make a whole rubber band out of two of these smaller ones. So as soon as you've produced all of these bands, oh, and by the way, the name for that routine is Band Parenthood, and that name was suggested to me by Mike Maxwell. So after you do the Band Parenthood, you're going to make it look like you're making two of these rubber bands into one. You pick up one of these, they're looking at these, and you show the little baby bands. You pick up one of these, you double it over on itself, and give it a twist, okay? So that it looks like two small bands. And you do that back here as you move both hands in, pick up the small bands, you make sure this one looks twisted like two small bands, you pick up a whole bunch. They don't know what you're doing. It looks like you're just playing with them. See, look at all the little baby bands, right? And then you take these two, which is the doubled over number 19 band, and you show both of those. So you just snap both of the bands. But it's actually a doubled over large band. Okay? So you show the two of them. There's the two small bands. And you put one onto your left index finger, one onto your left thumb. And you're still holding the center. Okay? But what it's actually happening is it's a figure eight. But you hold the center like this. And now here's a move that I came up with to show that the two bands are separate. Since the hands are facing one another, both on the index finger and thumb, you can pull up and down and then touch this index finger and thumb together as you pull that one apart. The cross just transfers from one hand to the other. But as long as you don't open them together, it looks like you have two separate bands. To go further, you can walk the bands over one another, like this. So it looks like you're rolling both of the bands around on your fingers. And after you've done that, you put one rubber band you transfer over to your left middle finger, like this. Put your right index finger straight up into the band and show that they're both wrapped around your index finger. Then you rub together here in the center. The bands will either be crossed, doubled over one another, or straight. Now with this routine, it's almost impossible to guarantee that they're going to be straight, but I'll show you a way that you can do it if you want to do this as a standalone routine. So you rub them like that. If they're crossed over one another, then just pull it off of your thumb to show that it's restored. Here's the way to guarantee that they come out straight. Start with the band on your middle finger and your thumb. It's out of the context of this routine, but if you start with one this way, transfer it over to your index finger, and then pick it up, now you can come out and show two bands. Put them onto your index finger and thumb, perform the entire sequence showing the two bands. When you transfer it back over to your middle finger and rub in the center, then the strands come out perfectly straight. So that is my 2-to-1 join. It's where I take two rubber bands and I make them into one rubber band. Following along in that, I go into a sequence that was invented by Ray Cosby, and it's called Recurring Nightmare. You'll recognize it as the professor's nightmare with rubber bands. Instead of using ropes, you're going to use the rings of the rubber bands, which is kind of a strange concept, although it works virtually the same way. The only difference is that instead of using the small end or the small band, you just eliminate it completely. And I'll show you how. I have that doubled over large rubber band still here. And I've just made these two small rubber bands into one large rubber band. So I throw that onto the table as my right hand comes down here and picks up that doubled over large rubber band. It's actually looks like four small ones. Picks it up here, I throw this onto the table. My hands come forward and pick up a bunch of the small rubber bands. And I say I could do the same thing I did with that with a bunch of these. And I just pull that large rubber band out. I show all four rubber bands and I say if I did that though, I'd end up with one that was too big. You just unfold it. It's that simple. Sometimes the simplest things are the most effective. So now you have a large rubber band, you have a medium-sized rubber band, and you have a small rubber band. You go into the nightmare effect, which goes like this. You place the small one onto your right hand near your thumb. You place the medium one next to it. You place the long one over everything. Okay? You're going to thumb palm the small rubber band in your right hand. So it's going to be thumb palmed here. The large rubber band, as you pick it up, you put a twist in it, just a small twist in the end, double it over itself, and pick it up like this, so that it looks like a small rubber band and a long rubber band. But that's just the twisted section. At the same time that you pick up the long one, you're picking up the medium one. So taken together like this, it looks like you have a long rubber band, a medium rubber band, and a short rubber band, but you're actually holding two. And that's the secret. You're going to take your index finger, you still have this band thumb palm, so you point your index finger, get it into what appears to be the small rubber band, and pull it. Relax the pressure of your left index finger and thumb, and as you pull the small one down, the long one just loops over itself, doubles up to look exactly the same as the medium rubber band. So you end up holding three rubber bands that are the same size. Now if you can go in here and find the regular medium rubber band, be careful as you take it out. You have to look for which one it is. Then you can show that the bands are separate. Okay? That's simple. All the while holding the small rubber band over here. So you show that you have three rubber bands that are the same size. And then you place your left index finger through the center loop of those bands. And as you spin it, it's just going to naturally, the tension is just going to wrap it up on your finger so that the band goes back to a small rubber band and back to a long rubber band. You'll see, there, just like that. So you can see the long one here, the medium one there, and the small one back on my finger. And I'm just going to grab them, and as I grab them and pull them off, I display them like this for just a second, still in this condition, and then I let the short loop here drop out as I throw the small rubber band onto the table, and then the medium one, and then the long one. Okay, and that's Ray Cosby's recurring nightmare, which is one of the most unusual rubber band effects, a nice application of the professor's nightmare. From here, I go into a splitting sequence. And this is very strange because I'm taking, a lot of the times I'm taking things that exist on the table that people know are here, but because they know that they're here, they don't pay any attention to it. I'm going to be adding in a rubber band that already exists. So here's how I do it. I've just thrown those three on the table. I rest my right hand over this pair of rubber bands here. And as I rest it over this pair, with my left hand I pick up the visible medium-sized number 19 rubber band, and I pinch one of these bands off of the table. So now I'm just adding in an extra band. It's been there the whole time, so it's a very visible, very easy steal. I just direct attention to this one. I spread it out on my fingers like this, and I bring this band up in a pinching grip, and I just snap these strands. So that band's completely covered, comes from the table right up to here, snap, snap. Now I act like I make a mistake. And this is important that you act like this is a mistake. You pull, and the band snaps off of your thumb. So you go, oh, yeah, I didn't mean to do that. But you don't actually verbalize it, you can just think that in your head. So you pull, snap, snap, and then pull, and it comes off. The moment that that loop comes off, you let this one fall out of your hand, and you grab that one up. And then you put your thumb into that loop. Now all that's done behind your hand, but it looks like all you're trying to do is get your thumb back into the same loop. The actual situation is there's a band here and a band there. So you've added in the extra one under what looks like just a natural, casual mistake. So snap, snap. Nope, sorry. It's okay, I've got it. That's it. And then you're in position. So now you're just about to snap it, and these bands will split apart. But just to make sure that nothing happens and no band flies off of your finger, I touch my index finger to my thumb, I snap, and the two bands separate. And now I've split one into two. And that's cloning. Okay? So I've cloned the band. Now as soon as I do that, I'm going to throw these back onto the table again. And I'm going to pick up this band and place it over there, get rid of some of these, clean up a little bit, and you'll notice that my right hand is going into my pocket to steal the big bundle of rubber bands. So I just steal the big bundle of rubber bands and I keep it finger palmed. Very simple, really natural action on that. And the whole time that I do that, I ask the spectator to pick one of these bands, to just hand one of them to me. And whichever one that they hand to me, I just pick it up and I show it. Kind of a sponge ball move, actually, because you're showing one here. That's where the attention's focused, but you have something hidden back in your fingers, like that. So you show this band, and you say, that cloning would take me a long time to make too many bands, so I'm going to shift it into high gear. And all you do is bring both of your hands together, unsnap the band that's retaining those, and wiggle your fingers as you drop bands out. And it looks like you've taken one band and split it into that many. Okay? So that's the easiest production you could get. I put this many, that's about 20 bands, but you could easily get about 50, maybe even 100 bands and still not have too many in your hand. So you could literally cover the table with them. So this is the multiple appearance. That again is a Gary Butler idea. After this, I go into two weird things by Gary Butler, and I wanted to show you the setup on those instead of just going into it. One of them is the thumb tip, but the first part is tying a rubber band in your mouth. And when you tie the rubber band in your mouth, it's actually an old idea with a cherry stem. Some people can actually tie a cherry stem into a knot in their mouth, and I've seen it done. But most people that show you that stunt are faking it. And what they've done is they've tied a cherry stem into a knot with their hands, hidden it in their mouth, and then they take one and they switch it for the one that's tied. So that's exactly what you're doing with the rubber band. Before you go into the routine, you've taken a rubber band, you've tied it into a very tight knot that would be impossible to tie in your mouth, and you've just hidden it in your cheek and gum. place it over to the side, and you can perform the whole routine with that rubber band in there. And then you show one, and you say, I'm going to try something dangerous and disgusting, and you place it into your mouth, trying to show your mouth as empty as possible the whole time. As it goes in, you put it on the other side. You pull out the one that's tied, and you extend an end. Now, I like, when I pull it out, to keep it held between my teeth so that you can see the knot before I release it from my mouth. The other rubber band just stays in the side of your mouth. So it's a total fake, but it's a great stunt. And it's really interesting. You could use this, to win a bar bet or something like that. It's a very nice stunt. Now, after that, they've seen you tie one. You're going to go into the Hindu bands, which is similar to the needle swallowing trick. It's basically the same concept. Swallow a whole bunch of separate items, bring them all out together. But you've done this really weird, disgusting thing, and again, you get to go into relax mode. So hands go into the pockets, and you put the thumb tip on. Now, when you put the thumb tip on, there's no way you're going to be able to hide all of those rubber bands that are on the outside, but you don't have to. You put the thumb tip on, and you dive into this pile of rubber bands and pick up some and place them in your right hand. So even any flash of that is going to look like the bands that you've picked up. So you pick up a few and you start putting them into your mouth. So you put more into your mouth. Now, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you saw in the performance, one after another, back and forth, until you get down to a single band here in the right hand. As you put that single band in, then you're going to load the thumb tip in. Thumb tip goes into my mouth, so it goes like this, all the way in. Now, when the thumb tip goes all the way into the mouth, all you have to do is pull this band that's closest to you off. Okay? And it snaps right off, like this. Thumb tip goes into the mouth, and you're already holding the end of the strand. So it comes right off onto your thumb. Okay? When you get to the end, you'll feel the thumb tip. The tension will be here. You'll know that it's the end of the strand, and you can pull with this, with your left hand, you can cover the action of the thumb tip coming out of your mouth. Taking the end of the strand, and then pull it off the tip, like this. So now the strand is separate, the thumb tip's out of the mouth, you can put the thumb tip back on to your right hand and display all the bands together. Some of you may be wondering, after performing the Hindu bands, and getting rid of the knotted ones and the thumb tip, what do you do with all the rubber bands that are in your mouth? Well, I wish I could say that you do something pretty with them, but you don't. You just leave them there, actually. Or you find an opportune moment to turn around and expel them so that no one knows that you've done it. Or you take a drink of something and get rid of them then. Or you just say, thank you, and you leave the table. That's all. As you can see, some of the previous effects require a little advanced preparation, but there aren't any special gimmicks involved except for a thumb tip. So if you do want to perform some of these effects and you don't have them prepared, take a moment away from your audience, get them ready, and then come back. And that should work fine for you. You've seen a sample of how simple little rubber bands can be transformed into highly effective props for your magical performance. Perhaps the most important lesson is that rubber band magic doesn't have to look like a puzzle or a stunt. In fact, it doesn't even have to be about the rubber bands at all. Just like other magic, if you practice your techniques to make your actions seem natural and concentrate your efforts toward entertainment, then you can create some wonderful magical experiences. In Volume 2, I'll show you more routines which go far beyond the basic moves, and I'll introduce you to new concepts which allow you to perform incredible effects. Until then, I hope that you've learned a few things to stretch your imagination.